Hello, I'm going to be doing a tutorial for book layout. This is going to help you complete the book layout exercise and teach you what you need to know to get started with book layouts in Adobe InDesign. So the first thing that you need to do is go ahead and open Adobe InDesign. Then I'm going to go ahead and choose the file dropdown and create a new document, which will serve as my book interior. From the top tab, I'm going to select the print option. The book that I'm going to make will resemble a chapbook, and that is in the letter half print size. So when I click on the blank document preset for letter half, it's going to automatically populate the width and height for my project at 33p0 by 51p0 or 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. For every book document that I create, I usually start out with 100 pages. Once the document's created, I can always either add more or delete pages as I need to. And then I want to make sure my orientation for the pages is on portrait. For book interiors, I only need one column. The next thing that I'm going to do is adjust my margins. So margins for books can vary depending on the typography choices that you make and then also the leading for the typography. And so I'm going to go ahead and unclick the link and show you the margins that I use to get started. So normally as a starting place, I will use 6p0, which is approximately 1 inch for the top margin. The bottom margin, which is the largest, I will do at 7p6 or 1.25 inches. My inside margin, I will usually always do 6p0, especially for perfect bound paperbacks. And this allows you to see all the text in the book. Even if you're sort of just like curving the spine, it won't cover that text. So I will rarely go less than 6p0 for the interior. Although for chapbooks, which lay flat when open, you can make the inside margin smaller than 6p0 if you need to. But for any kind of bound book, 6p0 is about as small as I will go. And then I want to give my outside margin a little bit of difference from the inside, and I do want some variation in margins so that the text blocks that I create don't appear to float like they're in a picture frame. And so just this 0p9 difference between outside and inside, and then of course the difference between top and bottom eliminates that effect. Now for most of the books that I create, I don't have interior bleeds or slugs for them. But one thing that I will say about creating book interiors is if you do have a bleed, you'll want to set your bleed settings with a broken link, whereas if you're designing covers, the bleed settings will be the same for everything. And again, the printer will tell you what the bleed setting will be. Um, but I can tell you that most printers are going to be 0p9 or 1p6. That's 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch. And so you want to add those values for the top, bottom, and outside, but not for the inside. So if you add a bleed on the inside, it will actually like bleed over onto the facing page, which you don't want. So the inside value stays at 0, and then the others will match the bleed value that the printer gives you. But for the purposes of this activity, we don't need a bleed at all. So I'm going to go ahead and put those all back to 0p0. Okay, so just to recap, I've selected letter half, which gives me a width of 33p0, a height of 51p0, 100 pages, and with my margins at 6p0, 7p6, 6p0, and 5p3. And now I'm going to go ahead and click Create. So once I do this, I have my book. So I'm going to be working from the advanced workspace. If you're opening up InDesign for the first time, it's going to default you to Essentials, but I want to work with Advanced. And if you modify the workspace at all, you can also save your workspace, and it will just repopulate it. So if you're using InDesign for multiple tasks, you'd be able to have different workspaces that have the tools available for you to complete those tasks. But for my purposes, the advanced workspace gives me what I need in order to create a book layout. Okay, so other things that I need to know about my book is that in the pages panel here, I have all the pages that I created in miniature. Right now, they all have the A parent page applied. So the A parent just means that everything on my book interior pages corresponds with anything that I've added to the A parent. So the A parent is a page template that's going to control recurring items and objects that you want to appear on every page of your book. And so when you create new parents, you can choose to connect them to the A parent, which is the one that exists in there um, to begin with, and that takes on the attributes that you created when you set up the document. Or you can have all the parents be separate. And so you can add things that occur only in certain sections of your book, and it's really useful for managing different kinds of layouts that you might have if you're doing a complicated book like a textbook or something like that. But for our purposes, you can get by on a book project like this with just a single parent page. And we'll be talking about how to access the parent page later. So the first thing that I want to do is get some paragraph styles in my document. So sometimes when you're sketching out a design, you'll create paragraph styles as you're sketching to add different attributes. But sometimes you walk into a design project and you already know the paragraph styles that you need. So I'm going to go ahead and create paragraph styles right now because I already know what I want them to be like. So in order to create a paragraph style, I open up the paragraph styles menu. You can see that the default that's in there is the basic paragraph style, but I'm going to create a few that I need to complete my book layout. Okay, so I'm going to go into the dropdown and in the top right corner of the paragraph styles panel and select new paragraph style. And I'm going to go ahead and type the name of this style, which I'm going to call body text. I'm going to base it on no paragraph style, and out of habit, I'm usually going to have apply style to selection selected and preview. So if I am working with any text, it's going to show me the changes that I make as I go through the menu. So over on the left-hand side tab here, there's several submenus for paragraph styles, but I really only need to interact with three general basic character formats and indents and spacing. You can see that there's a lot more than that, which just means that there's a lot more that you can do, but we're keeping it pretty basic for this particular book. So now that I have my paragraph style named, I'm going to go into the basic character formats menu and I want to set my paragraph style to Adobe Garamond Pro. And I'm going to set that by typing in the font family name. The default will be a regular or Roman style typeface. And then I'm going to use my favorite point size for book interiors, which is 10.5 point. And I'm going to go ahead and change the leading to 15. So normally I want to have the size of the point size that I choose and the leading that I choose be anywhere from 3 to 5 points apart. Any less than that, it's going to be too tightly packed in to be an easy read. Any more than that, it's going to start to look like double-spaced paragraphs, which I also don't want. So 4.5 points between the point size and the leading is going to give us a pretty luxurious reading experience. And also, if you don't have Adobe Garamond Pro activated, you can activate that by going to fonts.adobe.com, logging into your Adobe account, searching for Adobe Garamond Pro, making the family active, and then you might need to restart InDesign before that appears, but then it will appear in here if you don't have it. And if you don't have it and you can't find it or you can't log in and download, using something like Minion Pro, the default for InDesign, or Times New Roman would be fine for this exercise. Okay, so now that I've got my basic character formats menu filled out, I'm going to go over to indents and spacing. And in the indents and spacing, I want to adjust two things. First, I want to make my alignment left justify. So this is going to give me a squared off right edge on my paragraphs as opposed to left indent, which is what you probably are using when you type up essays in Microsoft Word and in Google Docs and things like that. And left alignment is okay, but left justify will give you a little bit more flexibility if you have to fine tune any paragraphs to deal with textual anomalies that inevitably creep up in your layouts and typesetting projects. So I like to use left justify. Using left alignment is not wrong per se, but I usually recommend beginning typesetters to use a left justify for their book designs and layouts. The other thing I want to set in here is the first line indent. So I'm going to set a first line indent of 1p6. When I'm setting first line indents, it's usually a good guideline to set these near what your point size is. So again, if you recall, we put in a 10.5 point size for our point size. So I really don't want to go anywhere below 0p9 on my first line indent. And that's going to give me a very small indent. And I really don't want to go too much past 1p6, which is like a quarter of an inch. And I definitely don't want to go to 3p0 or a half an inch. I just think it looks kind of strange on the smaller page size to have that much of an indent. So if I'm using a first line indent, that means that I will have no space after paragraphs. I do have the option to choose no first line indents for my paragraphs. If I do that, I want to have a space after, and again, the same governing guideline applies. If I'm using 10.5, the space after is probably going to be about like 0p9, 0p10. If I go any more than that, it starts to look like too big of a space. Less than that, it's hard to differentiate between the paragraphs. So I want to keep that in the ballpark of the point size that I'm using. But for this particular project, I'm going to use those first line indents. And I will say, like, controlling the flow of paragraphs in your stories and your document and your project as a whole is going to be a little bit easier if you use first line indents. But if you want to use space afters, that is not a problem. You can always figure something out. So now that I have this done, I'm going to click OK, and you can see that body text now populates in my paragraph styles menu. Now, the other way that I can create paragraph styles is to manipulate them using the tools up here at the top of my screen. So I'm going to go ahead and select the type tool or the T tool, and I'm going to make a text box here, and I'm just going to type in the word title because I'm going to create a paragraph style that is for the titles of my project. And I'm just going to go ahead and highlight that. And you can see it's got the body text attributes applied to it. But I'm going to change this to a font called Helvetica Neue. And I'm just going to use the regular version here. And then I want to set this to 18 point. For the title font, the leading doesn't matter, so you can just leave it at whatever it's at. I want to select all caps, which will do that to it and make it into an all cap. And then I want to add a space after my paragraph of 1p6. So the space after on this menu is right up here. If you don't know what these things mean, you can just hover over them and the name will appear. So my space after here is going to be 1p6, and you'll see the reason why I did that in just a minute. So now that I have everything highlighted here, you can see I'm starting to get an override for my body text style. And if I hover over there, it'll tell me what the overrides are. But the overrides are fine because I'm going to use this to create a new style. So now I'm just going to hit new paragraph style. And I'm going to call this title, as you might have anticipated. And right now my title text, because I had that paragraph of that text box that I created styled with body text, that the body text is going to act like a nested style for the title style. And this just means that as I go through my project, if I change title or if I change body text, it's also going to change title. And then anything else, any other style that is based on body text. So I don't really want that to happen. So I'm going to make sure here on my general menu to select no paragraph style. This means that as of now, title and body text are going to function separately from one another. So there won't be a global change that I make to body text that also affects title, which is what I want. I want to keep those two things separate. Okay, and then you can see in basic character formats, all the adjustments that I just made, Helvetica Neue regular 18 point with all caps are there. So I don't need to do anything in this menu like I did when I created the style from here. And then it's going to keep the attributes of the body text style. And so my alignment here, I do want to change to center. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in the menu here because I want my titles to appear on the center of the page. And then I want to just get rid of that first line indent that it's bringing over because I don't need that for this style. So once I do those two things, this style is all set to go. And I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. So now my title style is made. And then I want to create a third style that I'm just going to do from the paragraph style menu here. And I'm going to call this the author style because each of my stories that I'm going to put into this book do have an author attribution on them. So for my author style, I'm just going to create it from this menu and I'm going to make it in Helvetica Neue again, 14 point. And for the 14 point, I'm going to align this right. So I'm going to do that from my indents and spacing menu. And I want to add a space after to this one of 4p6, which is 3/4 of an inch. And this is going to create the space between where the author attribution is and where the body text starts for each of the stories that I place. And then once I have that stuff in there, I am good to go. I can go ahead and click OK. And now you can see what the author style does. And now I'm done with this text box that I'd created because I don't need that anymore because all the styles are done. Okay, now I'm going to go and work on the parent page, which was formerly known as the master page, but they changed that name. So I should say that because that's what it says in the document. So I'm going to go and work on the parent page. So like I indicated earlier, to get to the parent page, I need to take special steps. So I'm going to just double click on the page. And then whichever one is highlighted in blue, that's the one that I'm on. Um, so you just want to keep that in mind. And on the parent page, I'm going to add things that are recurring on many or all of the pages in the document that I'm working on. So right now, what I'm going to be working with are page numbers. So I want to be able to get page numbers in here. And for me, I like my page numbers to be at the bottom of the page. And the ones that I'm going to create now are going to line up with the outside margin edge of my text box here. So I'm going to create page numbers on either side. But in order to get that to line up, I'm not just going to eyeball it because that's too imprecise. So what I can do is pull a guide. And to pull a guide onto my page layout, I just go into the appropriate ruler. So over here on the left-hand side ruler, I can pull a vertical guide, and I just want to align that up with the outside margin edge, and then I'll grab one and pull it to the other side. And if I wanted to pull a horizontal guide, which is very, very helpful in sketching out designs, I just do it from the top ruler. So for pulling guides horizontally from the top ruler, if I do it over the page, it pulls it for that page. So you can see I'm on the verso here, the recto here, it's pulling the guide. But I can also do it for the entire spread by going out in the pasteboard. And the pasteboard is just that area that surrounds the page there. Um, so I'm actually not going to pull any horizontal guides, but when you get to the design phase, those are really useful. So it's worth mentioning now. Okay, so now I'm going to grab a text box here and I'm going to just put it down here after the bottom margin of the text block. And then I just want my edge of my text box that I create, to go over to this guide that I've pulled that's the same as the left margin edge. And I just have my basic paragraph style selected. And I want to get a page number in here. So to get page numbers in here, I have to go through a special process. And that process is going to indicate that what I'm putting in here is a page number. And that's going to give it the code behind the scenes that when you're back in the book proper and not just up here on the parent page, that it should be the current page number. And so to do that, I'm going to go to my type dropdown, go to the insert special characters menu, select markers, and select current page number. And then the page number will appear curiously as a letter. And it does that because the letter corresponds with the parent page that you're on. So we're on the A parent, the top level parent page. But I can tell you that the page numbers will be there on all the pages, even though these are not yet styled the way that I want them. So, and then to get the page number on the other parent page, I can either draw a new text box or I can just copy and paste this one. So that's what I'm going to do here. And of course, I want this page number to line up with the other outside margin edge. So I'm just going to select my type tool and I'm going to align this one to the right. Okay, and then I'm going to pull this down and I want to get it lined up with the guide here. And so once it's lined up with the guide, it will be kind of sticky. So it'll kind of just stick there. And you can start to see that smart guides are appearing to help me. So you can see the vertical smart guide that's in blue is letting me know that the text box that I pulled is lined up with the exact center of the text blocks in the middle of the page. And then the 3 lines are letting me know that this is perfectly lined up with its other page number text box on the Verso page there. So I'm going to go ahead and let go of that. So now I've got a page number in here on both sides, but these page numbers are a little bit large and they're also maybe a little bit too close to the text block for my liking. So what I'm going to do is create a paragraph style, and I'm going to do it just by manipulating the page number that I've already put in here. So I like my page numbers to be slightly smaller than the text that I create. So as you'll recall, we did Adobe Garamond Pro 10.5 for our body text. So for the page number, I'm also going to set it in Adobe Garamond Pro regular, but I want to do it at 9 point. So I've got that set at 9 point. And so once I have that done, the other thing that I want to do is grab my selection tool. And when you create a text box, it's going to assume that you want the text to align with the top because most of the text that we put into a document is going to be aligned with the top of the box. But here I can also change the alignment up in my menu up here. So I can also align that page number with the bottom of the text box, or I can make it directly in the center, which is what I'm going to do here. So the page number is just about like splitting the difference between the bottom margin of the text block here and then the page edge down below. And I can always like fine tune that if it appears to be like too close to the text itself. And then so for this one, I'm going to go ahead and create a paragraph style that I'm going to call verso footer. So everything on the verso footer, if I add anything to that page number, will take on these attributes of Adobe Garamond 9 point, align left. And of course, I'm going to apply that style to the selection and make sure it's based on no other style. Click OK. And then I'm going to make those manipulations over here. So switch this to 9 point, Adobe Garamond Pro regular. And I'm going to go ahead and pick my selection tool and align that with the middle of the text box there. Use my type tool to go ahead and make a new paragraph style that I'm going to call the recto footer because it's for the recto page. And, everything that I just did is in there except for this little change here. So change that to Garamond. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go back to the book proper. I've created all the paragraph styles that I need. So I'm going to start placing documents in here. So I'm going to select page 5. This will be the actual like place where the body of the book starts. The rest of this will be front matter. Front matter includes things like the half title page, the full title page, a copyright page, maybe like a table of contents. Actually, I'm going to start on page 7. That'll be like where my body starts here. So in order to get content in here, I don't want to copy paste it from any document that's already created. I want to place it. So the file dropdown has the place command in it. So I'm just going to select that. InDesign's going to think for a minute, and then I'm going to go over to where I have these documents stored. My unending maze of documents that I create. And these will be in my cleaned folder. So you'll see that there are a bunch of different documents in here. So you've got your title, your contents here, also your first chapter, which is what I want, my 01 chapter, Lorem Ipsum. Once I go ahead and select that, I have what's called a loaded place cursor, and that just looks like a left-hand corner with a little selection tool and a paragraph icon. And then in miniature, I see the document that I opened from Word. So it'll be a little bit of the contents of that document. And then I just want to line that up with the top corner here, and the tool will line up exactly with that. And then it creates a text frame that has my entire chapter in here. So I'm just going to pull this down to show you that all of the text in that chapter is here, and this is multiple pages worth of text. But there's only one text frame for it right now. And so this frame is sitting on top of the text margin block that I've created. That's what the place cursor does. And then all the rest of the text is in here. So before I start to place the rest of the story, I want to be sure that I style it with the most prevalent style. So the most prevalent style in most books that I work on is some version of the body text style. And so with the selection tool, I can click on body text and it changes everything to body text. So that's that Adobe Garamond Pro 10.515. It's already looking better than that clean document. And then everything is styled. So I'll roll this back down. And the reason I want to do that is because the body text style that I create is usually much smaller than the text that I had in the Word document that I cleaned. And so if I don't style this first and I place the entire chapter and then style it after, I'm going to be left with a bunch of extra text boxes that I have to clean up. And I don't want a lot of extra text boxes messing up the document. Another thing I do at this time is turn on my text threads. That's under the view dropdown under extras. And so the text threads are going to show me different things that I place in my document. So I can go ahead and like place this chapter one page at a time by clicking that out port, which reloads the place cursor. So that's the out port down here. It looks like a little plus sign. And you can see the thread from the first piece of the story there. And so I can tell you that this story is like 12 pages long, and it takes quite a long time to place everything like this by hand. And there is a faster way. So I will show you this method, and then I will show you the other method. So this way works well if you're working on something that has a complicated style, like say a complicated poetry book where I have to style page by page, looking back at the original, but this is pretty much all the same style of prose. And so I don't need to do that like page by page styling. So doing it this way, is a little bit more laborious than it needs to be. I'm having a hard time like filling in words to say to even talk about it while I'm doing it. But there, we've reached the end. So I'm going to go ahead and undo all of this stuff here. And I'll show you the faster way. And the faster way or this way, just keep in mind, like you have to have that styling done before you can do this. So before I go ahead and place this, I also want to style my title, style my author. And then I'm going to go ahead and place this in the more efficient way. So it starts the same way. I click on that port and load my place cursor again. Get down to the next page where my story is going to go. And everything's the same, except I'm going to hold down the shift key on the keyboard, and you can see that little paragraph icon now changes to a squiggly line. And the squiggly line just indicates that this is going to auto flow. So that just means InDesign is going to find every corner of every subsequent text block and put this story in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it just finds it for you. And it does in one click what it'd take me several clicks to do before. Okay, so now I've got my first story in there, and I can go up to the pages panel and I can see how far it goes. I mean, I already know because we placed it a page at a time. So it goes to page 19. So I can just double click on page 20, and that's where my second chapter is going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and find that one, which is called Exposition. And I'm going to place it, and then I'm going to style with body text, style the title, style the author. And now I'm ready to auto flow. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And while we're on chapter 2, it is not right with my title spacing. Go ahead and change that. Okay, that looks more like it. Okay, so this particular chapter has some italic type in here. And the italic type is actually a deviation from the paragraph style that I created called body text. So I need to handle any deviations from what I set up for my paragraph style, which controls paragraphs. So if I put my cursor down in the italicized paragraph, you can see the body text shows an override with that little plus sign. The override is italic. So when I create my layout, I don't want to have any overrides at all. So any kind of style deviation at the character level inside of a paragraph that's different from the specifications of the paragraph, I can control with the character style. I could also control this because it's an entire paragraph by making something called body text italic. But I don't like to do that because italics are rarely entire paragraphs. They're usually like a word here and there, and I want to be able to account for those. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my character style menu, and it works in a very similar fashion to the paragraph style menu, but it's a more limited selection. So I'm going to go ahead and click on new character style. I like to call my italic one just ital. You can call it italic, it doesn't really matter. And then I just want to make sure the only thing in my menus that's populated is this font style italic here. And so I've got that. I don't really use any of the other parts of the menu for this, just general and basic character formats. Then I can click OK, and then I can highlight this paragraph, and then it's got no character style applied. I'm going to apply the ital, and then I'll go back to my paragraph style menu. And that plus went away because now InDesign knows that this has the attributes of a body text paragraph plus the character attributes of the character style ital. And then once I start getting things into my document, I usually will search for italics right away after I place something and get that character style in right away. Because if there are italics in the project that you're working with, one thing that can happen is you can drop them by applying paragraph styles. And I don't want to drop italics because obviously that would harm to the book and introduce a mistake that I would have to correct or catch later. And I don't trust myself to do that, so I don't want to leave it to chance. So there is one more instance of italic in here, so I will be able to show that again. Okay, so now my document goes to page 32, and I'm going to place the third part here. And so now that I'm placing the subsequent chapters and I don't have to explain everything, you can kind of get a taste for how the efficiency works. So one thing that I'm going to do as soon as I place things now that I know that there's italics in my document, I'm going to use Command F to bring up my find menu, and I'm going to search for italics to see if they're there in the paragraph. So in order to do that, I want to use the find format, go to basic character formats where that part of the character style lives, type in italic and click OK. And then I want to change to the format of my ital character style, which is right here. Click OK. And then I want to just go ahead and click on change all. Oops. I just want to undo that and then make sure that I'm picking for the story. So I'm going to do this story by story, and there's 0 in chapter 3, so it's not going to change anything. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and get my styles in here. So body text, title, author. And if I want to rearrange these for any reason, like I might want to move body text up and have title and author before it because that's the order of the story. I can do that. Recto footer and verso footer are going to be less used, so might not need to have spots for those. Okay, then I'm going to auto flow the rest of my story. Jump back to the pages panel here and find my next open page, which is 46. So here comes number 4. Command F, change all. This one does have that italic paragraph, so it will show as just one replacement, but it's doing everything in the paragraph with that character style. Then I'm going to style with body text, hit the title with title, and the author with author. You can see that italic paragraph there. Then I'm going to auto flow. And then I'm going to find my next open page, 59. So now we're going to place story number 5, falling action here. Search for italics. None present in the story. So I'm going to add my paragraph styles. Then I'm going to get my selection tool, load my place cursor, auto flow, back to my pages panel. Find my next open page and place my 6th and final story, the resolution here. place that first page, search for and change italics. There aren't any. Style with my paragraph styles, body text, title, author, get my output with the selection tool and autoflow. And this is 6 chapters and it goes for up to page 84. So you can see a pretty short book, but you can see if we just had these 3 styles and we're placing a whole book, which is certainly something that is possible, like how quickly and efficiently we could get all this text in and styled, rather than if we had to go a paragraph at a time or something like that. Okay, so another part that I want to do now is to create a parent page for every chapter of the book. Okay, so my A parent page, it covers everything that's on every page, but to create new parent pages, I just go up to the drop down, select new parent, and I want to get those page number boxes in, so I'm going to select this, and I'm just going to title these by their chapter title. Okay. Okay, and then I want to go ahead and add this chapter name in here on the recto. I'm going to add my chapter title in there. And you can see because these are items that occur on the A master, um, I can't click them. I have to use Command Shift and click to be able to access the parent page item. And then over here, I'm going to put the author's name, Foxy Brown, and I'm just putting 5 spaces between that. And you can see it's taking the attributes that I've already created from my recto and verso paragraph styles. So now that I've created my parent page for my first chapter here, Lorem Ipsum, which I know goes from page 7 to page 19, I need to apply that parent page to those pages. And so I can do that. And you can see up here that it has the A attributes. It's based on A. So that little A in the corner is showing you that. So to add parent pages, I can drag them down to the page where I want them to apply. So you can see I changed the parent page to B, and I'd have to do this recto and verso. So you can see that would, again, be less efficient. So there is a way to apply parent to multiple pages. So I've already done 7, but I want to do this whole chapter. So it goes from page 7 to 19. So I can just put the range in there, click OK. And so now when I go back to these pages, it's got the running footer material. So now I'm just going to do that for my subsequent stories here. So my next one is exposition. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new parent. Again, I'm going to base it on A, the A parent. It's going to take me to the new one. I'm going to override here. Override here, type the author's name. And then I want to apply. So this one goes from 20 to 32. And then a new one for rising action. Base it on A. Add my author's name over here. Again, it's Command Shift and click to override. And I want to apply. So this one goes from 33 to 45. Command Shift click to override. And then, so this one is going from 46 to 58. And then this one's going from 59 to 71. And then this one goes from 72 to 84. So I'm going to apply that. Okay, so my book proper is placed, styled, and has parent pages applied. And you can see I have about 15 pages extra in here that I don't need. So there's a couple way to get rid of my extra pages. One of them is to go into the pages panel and just click and drag them to the trash can one at a time and it'll delete them. The other ways are to go either to the drop down here where I can never mind. I'm going to go to the layout drop down here and select pages and select delete pages. And then this can go ahead and delete whatever I don't need. So I believe that is 85 to 99 now that I deleted page 100. And if it deletes without incident, you didn't delete anything of importance, a menu will pop up here that says, there's objects on the pages you deleted. Do you really want to delete them? And then you can kind of decide yes or no. So it'll sort of prevent you from inadvertently deleting something. Okay, so now that I've created parent pages, I'm going to go ahead and put an image in here. So an image goes on page 3 of the first chapter. So that would be page 9 here. To get an image into the document, I just place it in the exact same way that I placed my text, but it'll be in images here. So I've got the lonely image green.tiff, and I'm just going to place that kind of like right in the middle of the column here. The directions say upper right corner, just ignore that. I don't know what I was thinking at that particular moment. And then I want to add a caption to my image. And so I'm just going to draw a text box and I'm going to type in the words Bruce Nauman's Green Light Corridor, which is what the caption is, and also what that piece of art is. And then I want to center this and I want to style it at 10 point with 12 point leading. So it looks just like that there. And I want to create a new paragraph style for this called caption. And I don't want to base it on body text, but I do want to apply it to the selection. So I'll click OK. So now I've got my caption made there. And I want to make sure that my caption is selected, hold down the shift key and click on the image. And then I want to go up to my object dropdown and group these together. So now these will function as a unit. So when I move the image, the caption also moves. And you can see I've got a problem, like this is covering up my text. So I don't want that to happen. And I'm going to choose my text wrap menu. And there's two options that will work for this. One is the wraparound bounding box. And that would mean like if the image permits it, it would let text be on the either side of the image. But for my purposes here, I don't want it to be like that. So I'm going to choose the jump object. And so it goes ahead and jumps the object. Now I want to make my caption small here. So you can see like with the group selected, the text for the body text here is too close to the image. And in order to get that to not be so close, I want to add some padding to the text wrap. And so I just want to make sure my link is broken. So I'm going to go ahead and break that. And then I just want to put in my bottom padding there. And the bottom padding should be somewhere between the point size and the leading that you've chosen for your body. So we know that that is 15 points. So I just want to eyeball it, give it enough space so that this has enough room to operate. And it looks like we're good to go there. Does look like I have a first line indent on here, so I'm just going to clean that up. There we go. That looks good. So that's adding an image in there and a caption. So a couple other things that I want to do are to make a half title page, a full title page, and a table of contents. So the title of my book is the same as the title of this first chapter, Lorem Ipsum. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab this stuff. And so usually when I'm making title pages, I will go ahead and make the full title page first, because if I know what that looks like, then I also know what the half title page will look like. So this has just the title of the book and the author's name. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this, put it on the half title by selecting paste in place. And I want that title to be in the same spot as the other one, which is why I picked paste in place. And then the half title doesn't have author's name or press information. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that stuff out of there. And then the next thing that I want to do is, copyright page would be here. So this would be the page where I make my table of contents. So as you saw from the cleaned documents, we do have like a table of contents in there. And so one thing I can do is place this and then create some styles to make the table of contents. So that's one way to go about it. And I will say, like, this is the way I do it more often than not, because I want to, be able to control the table of contents, and I want to be able to check it myself. And to go through that process, I make sure that everything is lined up properly. InDesign can also auto-generate a table of contents for you. So if you go to the layout dropdown and click on table of contents, I want to add the style that I use for this, and that is the title style. So I'm just going to go move that over to add, and then I want the entries, like this is what controls the entries. I just want those to look like body text. So once I put all that stuff in, it's going to give me a title of contents. If you want it to be table of contents, you can add that in yourself. And then when I click OK, it's going to load a place cursor for me, and it's going to give me everything that's with that style. And of course, like Lorem Ipsum here, like those are my half title pages. So those happen to be styled the same. So if you do use this auto-generated method, just make sure you change front matter titles or things on the title page to be different from titles in your book. And then I just need to add tabs here to get everything to line up. And then bingo, bango, you have your book done. So the next thing that I'm going to do is save this, and I just want to save it in my layout folder. And I'm just going to call my document Holly or your last name should go there. And I'll call that layout. Click save. And we're good to go. So those are the things that you need to do in order to create the book layout assignment. When you finish, you know that you can check through your work in normal view, make it fit in the screen, and kind of go through, and you have, even though it's a very boring book that uses the same few words on every page, you have a nice clean layout that would be appropriate for any fiction or academic book. So I'm going to go ahead and end the recording.